What's up, Guardians? It is the day before the day one contest raid, so I am putting together this quick build video for you guys based on what me and my fire team are going to be running for our run tomorrow. Now, I have been playing mostly Titan for this expansion. I played a little bit of Hunter on my first playthrough, both of them on the Legend campaign. I have the least amount of time on Warlock. However, my teammates are all playing Warlocks because we're planning to bring in like 3 Warlocks, 3 Titans. We're not planning on bringing Hunters, but I do have some Hunter builds just in case. Now, obviously, we haven't been able to test everything and try every exotic and every stat spread under the sun under the new system. However, we have found that trying to build into 1, maybe 2 stats at a time is generally much more preferred than trying to do a even stat spread on most builds. So with that, I am using the collections role of most exotic pieces just because I haven't had the time to nail down what I'm really chasing to min-max the roles here. So the collection roles is what I'm using. I think you'll be fine with most of these roles unless otherwise stated. And if you are able to look at like the kind of armor that I have on, for example, these brawler pieces, you can kind of go look for those or just prioritize however you want. I'll talk about the stats very briefly for each of these builds. But we are going to start with Titan today, and we're going to go ahead and start with Solar, which I think has had a very good glow up. Throwing Hammer traditionally has not had many damage boost on it that have given it a power boost. 1-2 punch is now operational with this. If we had the Solar hand cannon with 1-2 punch, I think that would be the de facto go-to. I'm not really building into 1-2 punch here because I think Lord of Wolves is just too much to give up right now. The total ammo on this thing did get nerfed, but if you look here, the ammo generation has actually been ramped up all the way to max. So if you do build into ammo gen with some special finders and some other things, or just use this pretty sparingly and use a bit more primary, a bit more abilities, you're not going to really miss that total ammo. It's not going to be the de facto best boss damage special weapon, but you are going to be, using heavy for the most part. You can just use Queenbreaker and you'll be fine. Use Lord of Wolves for encounters where there's not a boss to kill, and you'll be totally fine. You'll have a great time with this. So for this Solar Sunbreaker build, I am using the new exotic because it's more consistent to have proc than Synthos, and the throwing hammer changes where you don't pick it up immediately is awful. I hate it. However, this exotic is fun and it feels pretty powerful. Running it in the Fabled campaign missions last night, and it was a lot of fun. I've gone for as much melee as I'm able to get with my current armor pieces. There's like a couple here that just aren't giving me the exact stats I need to go higher, and I did want to have a bit of class ability just to make sure I'm able to proc other parts of my class like Reaper and things like that. I did put on a font mod here just to give me that last little bit to hit 200, so I am still getting the max damage boost as long as I've picked up an orb. And you can go ahead and you can work in something like stacks on stacks, or you could work on elemental charge to get some armor charge here. I think armor charge has become a lot more important for your builds because these fonts are so strong. 20 stat points is a lot more than it used to be. Even into like super and things like that will get you your super up much more often. Class ability as well. I think looking into 1 or 2 is a great idea, or like a specific one, like 1 or 2 strength. After 2, you get fall off on the third one, so I just generally don't recommend going for the third unless you absolutely need to, like going from 150 to 200 on your super stat when you're popping T-Crash. Good choice. Now, for the most part, there's hands-on in here to get some extra melee. There's the regular siphon mods. There's the regular hands-on to make orbs. There's some damage resist in here. There's some ammo gen just to give us some extra ammo. This actually does not work with Lord of Wolves, but it's on there in case I'm using my heavy. In the case that you're not doing boss damage, I would recommend taking like a GL or a machine gun in this slot, and then this ammo gen does something. It'll help you get some extra Lord of Wolves ammo just in case you're running low and you're just killing ads and you don't need to worry about a boss specifically. Scavengers are just as useful. They're like 1 extra shot for the most case. So for Lord of Wolves, this gets you 5 extra rounds. For your rockets, this is mandatory pretty much. I have Invigoration here just in case I lose my hammer, but you could take Recuperation if you want to make up for some of that extra healing that you could be missing. But generally on Solar Titan, I'm not too worried about healing. I've got sunspots. I've got enough health stat with this melee armor that I'm getting, 55 per orb just normally. Then the class ability, I have Time Dilation to make sure our surges last as long as possible. In the class itself, it's very traditional. Throwing hammers on here because you need it. I prefer Hammer of Soul. If you like Burning Maul, you can go for it. If you are going to try and adapt this to a damage phase, you would want to switch this with the Pyrogale Gauntlets, are these right here. that would let you turn Burning Maul into a one-off super, so you can like convert this into a boss damage situation if you need to. Just make sure you put Pyro Gales on, put on some super stat armor to get your super up, pop that, slam it, and then if you need to, you can switch off, or you could be the tractor guy and do tractor with a fusion rifle or something like that. So very, very powerful, very, very flexible, mostly for ag clear situations. I have fusion grenades on here to make sure we're getting scorched, because you do need fire sprites to proc this exotic. So with that, I have searing on here, so that scorched kills give us fire sprites. You can get that with like a kill with Lord of Wolves. All of this scorches. If you're using a legendary weapon, just incandescent or the new burning perk that gives you it on hit. Both great ways to proc scorch and get you a fire sprite. We have Empyrean on here to make sure our restoration is lasting long enough with our sunspots. Roaring Flames for a 200% melee damage boost. Torches for Radiant. Ashes to make sure we're getting some extra ignitions whenever we can. And this is all about being at mid-range and using your hammers to get hits and get sunspots, giving you restoration and radiant for long durations. Build number 2 for Titans is the one that I pretty much took through the entire Legend campaign, which was Strand Titan. I am switching this up just a little bit, because if you're in the raid, I would recommend taking Tractor if you can, just to get the most damage out of this as possible. If you want to run a machine gun, you definitely can just do that instead, and then take your favorite, exotic in this slot. I do have 1-2 punch on here just for the extra damage, because 1-2 punch is actually useful on this subclass. But we are doing Banner of War, which is going to give us extra melee damage after getting a melee kill or finisher kill, as well as healing over time. Even if you're getting gun kills in this after it's procced, you can extend the duration and increase the healing. It can heal you and your teammates, so very, very useful. Into the Fray will let you get Woven Mail with Tangles. So we are taking Warding here to be able to extend our Woven Mail, which will give us more melee cooldown as well. Isolation here is just for some extra sever, letting us spawn Tangles with weapons. Fury's here for some extra melee cooldown, and Generation just because we are using Grapple, which is already so fast. I don't really have anything else I prefer to take. You could take maybe Propagation if you would like, but I just thought it was a little bit redundant. Once again, we're going for mostly Brawler armor as much as we can sit on here. Now I'm running Worm Gods, but I ran the whole campaign. This goes up to 400% melee damage now. That stacks, an extra 100% on Banner of War for a 500% buff, or 650 if you proc 1-2 punch. Same kind of setup here, going for that 180 right now, just taking the melee font to make up the difference, getting your orbs to give you our extra charge, as well as some extra super here to make sure we're getting 50, just to make sure we have a bit of uptime here with Berserker, because popping our super will refund all of our melees. So generally useful to have. The mod setup is pretty much exactly the same, and the stats are the same, because it is still a melee build. Now for Arc Titan, I don't think you're going to be mostly playing Arc Titan for anything other than boss encounters. If you're on a boss encounter, taking Actium War Rig for the main damage phase, and then when you're going to pop super, you want to be on a T-Crash setup. You can set up both of these loadouts next to each other with the exact same weapons and stats and everything, and you can do 2 totally different armor sets to get this going. Now, the super, I pretty much think you should swap to right at the end or right before it starts, pop your super, and then switch back to the weapon one. If you want to have something for roaming and doing regular stuff, you can, although generally most of your weapon loadouts should be fine enough. Just depends on what you need in the moment. But for the actual super part, I just went for max super damage. You see we're at 198. I still have a font on here just to make up that extra 2, just because if you're going to T-Crash and have a whole loadout for it, why not just make sure you're hitting that 200. Obviously, you take Curus to get the bonus damage. And then I would recommend switching to an Alpha Loopy with your Storm's Keep to get you Barricade uptime. You'll get healing while you're doing damage behind it, and healing your teammates will get you Barricade back, and you'll have the Bolt Charge. So I think this is all just a great way to loop all the way into each other. Having Knockout on here to give you some healing if you're doing some roaming stuff. I don't think Alpha Loop is going to be bad at any point. If you're just running around with the primary, you'll probably be fine with this setup here. I do have beacons on here in case you have a special weapon. If you are not running an arc special weapon, switch up, because the weapons here don't matter. You really just want to be running Queenbreaker with Div. That's what we're going to be kind of focusing on for our damage. I have Recharge on here just to make sure if you're in well and your shields break, you get some bonuses to your cooldown. And then Frequencies, if you are amplified, will help you get Bolt Charge faster. This is basically all just weapon stuff, and then some arc surges, because the surges are better than the weapon stat raw 1-to-1 for the slot space. You don't really care about the font unless you need to have the extra chance for the double ammo bricks. If you do end up having ammo trouble, you can make a copy of this and just do a second version that is focused on those weapon fonts to make sure you're getting as much ammo as possible in between phases. Now finally, one more Titan build. I haven't run this a ton, but this is something that I think is pretty useful. This is definitely not for boss damage situations. This is for doing mechanics or puzzles. You have a stasis loadout here that you can get a lot of value out of Whisper of Rhyme. That DR is very useful. Well, obviously, we're running Shiver Strike, which can freeze targets, as well as Cold Snaps, which I think are very good for getting the freeze off when you need to in a pinch. Diamond Lances can give you stasis armor when you do the slime attack, so I recommend taking that. These are also very consistent to spawn with any stasis damage or shatters. As well as Tectonic Harvest is here to give you extra frost armor and stasis shards. With Hunger equipped, that will give you some extra melee regen, as well as Torment here to give you your grenade regen, Conduction to make sure they're coming to you, and then Refraction to get you your class ability on killing slowed or frozen targets, which we're going to be doing a lot of, because Icefall Mantle changes our Barricade to an AoE freeze, which you can then melee everybody, and every time you pick up Frost Armor, you will get healed, on top of the healing that you get when you usually proc this, or when you pick up with Tectonic Harvest. As well, getting kills with stasis weapons will get you Frost Armor. So a lot of Frost Armor build up, a lot of freeze. None of these are over 100 because these abilities don't do a lot of damage on their own. Shatter does most of the damage, which doesn't really scale directly with anything. So I've opted instead to go for 80-80 and then 70 in class ability, 60 in super, and then spec into a whole bunch of fonts and ways to get extra armor charge to make up the difference to 100. So with double supers, you'll go up to 101 super, which will get you a fast recharge speed. 80 and 80 in both of our abilities, along with 2 fonts, will get you to 100. Maximizing your cooldown, I have hands on there just as an extra way to make an orb just in case. On our chest piece, I have a health font just to give us some extra healing on orb pickup. Charged up to give us some extra stacks, so you have some extra time, because time dilation will get us a whole minute with 4 charges, as well as that class font bringing us up to 91 class ability, because it's already fast enough. Just having that extra little bit to make sure you are really not having as little downtime as possible is pretty convenient. And then for the legs, we have stacks on stacks, so that every time you get an armor charge, we get 2 charges. And elemental charge, so that our stasis shards, which we proc by shattering targets, which is pretty free and we do pretty much all the time, will have an escalating chance to give us armor charge. So we don't need all the orbs. We do have some here just in case. We have a siphon as well, just to make some orbs if we need them for the healing. But at any other time, you can really just focus on shattering targets and making crystals, and then shattering the crystals to get extra healing off of those with Icefall and Tectonic Harvest, as well as armor charge to give our bonuses to our stats. With that, I'm taking Tinashe's. You can take your favorite stasis weapon here if you want to run an exotic. Feel free. Aegis is going to go hard with this. I've just opted for this because it's convenient. Will do good damage against majors and adds, and I'm not looking to kill a boss with it. As well as Graviton Spike, because I think the Arc mode is pretty solid damage, and the Stasis mode, one, works with Siphon and being in this slot, as well as make Stasis Crystals for us, which will give us, extra healing, give us our cooldowns. So great combination with a Stasis build, I think. A bit less reliable than something like Aegis would be for being Stasis, but there's so much extra energy already by being at these triple hundreds almost, that I think it's nice to just have this hand cannon that is good for ad clear and single target. Obviously, it's no scout rifle, which we've all been using, but you can't use a scout rifle in the raid, so that's what we're talking about. Now, Warlocks, like I said, I don't have every class hand down because I didn't do the playthrough with my Warlock yet. This is just based on what I have and the collection rolls that I've pulled, and then what my Warlock teammates are running, which is they're focusing on Sun Bracers, on Lightning Surge, and on Speaker's Sight. So this is the Lightning Surge build, which is pretty much the same as it used to be, just taking Song of Flame because the damage resist and Song of Flame is just strong as is, Devour, and Lightning Surge, and then whatever fragments float you the best, Protection and Balance being the most important, Purpose getting you some extra healing, as well as Solitude giving you some extra DR, Hope giving you some class ability, and 3 charges of Lightning Surge with your melee. Cold Snaps here for Darkness Energy. If you don't need it, don't take it. You can take Healing Grenade, you can take Vortex, you can take Threadlings. Any of those grenades are pretty great. For your stats, I would recommend taking your melee as high as you can take it. If you are running Hoyle Synthos, which is the recommended roll for this, you'll want a decent grenade stat and a decent class ability stat. Super's not mainly what you're looking at. If you're using Hoyle, you want a good balance of all 3 to make sure you're able to proc it as often as possible. And then melee, you want as high as possible to get as much damage as you can. So I'd recommend looking for Brawler Armor if you can, and then anything that has a combination of those stats to balance out is what you're looking for. 70 is a good benchmark. Don't be afraid to use fonts if you're using this for ad clear, right? same as the Titan build. Use your fonts when you need them, and get to 70 as best you can in all those stats, and then over if you have the spare room. I'm moving over really quickly to the Sun Bracers build. I did run this in the Legend campaign a little bit. It is very, very fun. Extra grenade damage with going over to 100, so spike into grenade as best you can. You do want about 70 melee. A little bit less, a little bit more is not bad. You don't want to go over 100 because you're not really focusing on the damage. You just need one kill with the melee to proc Sun Bracers. Any kill in the air, grenade, guns, anything, gets you your melee back. You can just short hop for that. Touch of Flame to boost your solar grenades. Solar grenades because you need them to work with Song of Flame well, because that's probably what you'll be running. And then we have Resolve to give us Cure. You can really run anything else you want. I just like having that. Benevolence is also not a bad pick. Ashes to make sure you're getting Ignitions. Empyrean to extend your buffs. And Torches to give you Radiant. If you are good on your grenade and your melee, I'd recommend looking into super and class ability if you can. Weapons also not a bad pick for Radiant builds. Radiant is in the artifact, so I recommend, taking that first off. But you don't really need any specific weapons with this build, so I'm not really mentioning that. And finally, the Speaker's Sight build. Again, you want to get to about 100 grenade. Going over, we don't think does any benefit to Speaker's Sight. It might increase the duration of the turret, although that is unlikely. If you don't know, your Well of Radiance duration is increased with extra super stat. But with 2, 3, 4 Warlocks in our team, we're not too worried about rummaging through and maximizing super. I think weapons, grenade is what you're going to be looking for. We have a lot of Riesel armor on, and that's just because that's what I have on this character. So I'd recommend, realistically, doing grenade, doing class ability. Class ability will get you extra Hellion, because we recommend taking Hellion on this build. Obviously, you're taking Healing Grenade to make your turret, Phoenix Dive, or Healing Rift, whichever you prefer. Benevolence is probably your best friend. If you're not running Benevolence, Singeing will make sure you have 100% uptime on your Hellion. If you are going to run the Hellion Exotic, which I don't necessarily recommend all times, but if you are for funsies, just put that on and make sure you have high class ability. 70 should be enough with Singeing to give you 100% uptime, but 100 will get you even closer if you need it. Healing Auto will also work really well with this since you are running Benevolence. You can focus on healing somebody, you can proc Restoration on them and you, and that will help you build more into Speaker's Sight and make more orbs. If you don't know, Speaker's Sight gives you a healing turret, and healing teammates will spawn orbs on a cooldown. So, very, very good to have. Very powerful support option, and it's pretty much guaranteed to be something that we're running for most of the raid. So Hunters, I didn't get a ton of time to play and test all these Hunter builds. However, I did actually like Mariah more than I thought I would. So I'm going to recommend actually that it's probably a decent pick in the raid, just because Whirling Maelstrom is pretty high damage per tangle, and getting 2 of them is, even if you're not stacking, throwing them in 2 separate directions is pretty strong, giving you a lot of extra damage just in general ad clear situations. So I can kind of recommend taking that, and then making sure you have a bit of melee investment. You don't need to be over 100 if you don't want to be. 100 will make sure you're getting your spike back as often as possible. And you do get extra energy if you don't hit a tangle with it. So it's actually pretty nice to have a little bit extra and be throwing it out as often as possible. Getting your class ability high will also make sure you have your Gambler's Dodge up in case you need to throw your Threaded Spike at a tangle to duplicate it. You pretty much can do that for free. In the subclass, I do have Widow's Silk and Grapple just because it is pretty much the de facto pick for Hunter. Switching to something like Shackle Grenade if it's too dangerous is not a bad idea. But I kind of like having this just because if you have so many Maelstroms, you can grapple melee them as long as you're able to actually hit the grapple on them. So feel free to do that, or just do it on a regular tangle as well if you need the movement. I do have Continuity on here to increase the duration of your Sever with your Spike. Isolation's on here to give you some extra Sever as well, which is extra duration. You will get a lot of melee kills, so having Unraveling Rounds is nice. And then Fury's here to make sure you're getting this back as often as you can. It does work with your Whirling Maelstrom. It is just a little bit per hit with them instead of being chunks when you normally throw the tangle. So this is good for maintaining the uptime on your Spike. This is like a Threaded Spike spam build. You may ask, why aren't you higher in melee? And that's because I did get this nice roll with Proximity Power, which while you're surrounded, you can get kills with the weapon, and that will give you about 16 to 17 melee per kill, up to 3 kills, which is a nice way to give the extra boost here. Like I said, we're not focused on the melee damage, so I'm okay with relying on that. Then you can throw something like Lord of Wolves on here. I think that's what I had, and it's just gone. But for ad clear, kind of just go with whatever here. Make sure you're throwing your melee at tangles, and you'll be benefiting pretty much passively from that. You can go in and just do some siphons. Make sure you have some finders on. This is going to be more of a weapon-focused build. You want to go to about 70 in class ability. You can go a little bit higher in the weapons. This is just kind of the armor that I had, and I wanted to work on this Bushido set bonus here. because I had it and I thought it was cool to do. But you take whatever floats your boat, get some extra fonts in here, some extra healing would be pretty nice for this kind of build. And next up, this is the build that I ran through the campaign. The Spirit of Liars is currently disabled. However, they did not say that Liar's Handshake was disabled, so I am still under the assumption that this works. You would be losing out on Galanor or Hoyle or whatever you were running. However, if you are going for a punch build, you can still run Combo Blow with Liars to get really good damage output. This was still tearing up bosses in the campaign. If you are running it with the Grapple Grenade, you can get the extra damage there for boss damage. This is a really huge chunk. Very, very strong. I have Defiance on here just for class ability to make sure I'm hitting that 70. If you don't have 70, you won't be getting the recharge. So it is kind of dependent on the armor that you have to make sure you're getting that. Or what I had, this is what I had to go for, and I'm making up for it again with a font to get to that 70. Time dilation. This is just a niche pick. I just have it on there because. And then obviously you're going for melee damage. You're going for extra health on here because Domination Blow does decrease healing as you use it. And then Lord of Wolves 1-2 Punch. Silk Strike is on here because as a roaming super, you get it back really quickly. If you are going to be using it for boss damage, just go ahead and use Nighthawk and switch to Golden Gun and then swap between them when you need to, and you'll be doing great. Winter's Shroud, I think, is still my favorite pick here because it lets you get the extra damage with Courage if you so choose. It's an extra 50%. I don't have it on just because I really wanted this 70 class ability to make sure it's working correctly. And if you have the artifact upgraded, you can go ahead and use Cauterized Darkness, which lets you do extra solar damage as long as they have a stasis debuff. So using that with Winter's Shroud and then Lord of Wolves gets you a lot of extra damage. Now, finally, Hunters, we have a build that I just tried just to see how good it was. And oh my god, this thing is crazy. So Mask of Bacchus got changed so that getting kills while the buff is active will give you cooldown back. As long as you have about this range, 60 to 70, 2 kills will give you your whole dodge back, letting you reproc it and stack the buff up to 30% for your stasis, arc, weapons, and Lord of Wolves. Now, I have paired that obviously with Lord of Wolves. It's my preferred weapon. You do only have 185 rounds now. However, this thing has 100 ammo gen. So with 2 ammo finders on here, you can get a brick every 7 kills or so, which is about a mag and an extra round, which is what you normally get out of a brick with a solar scav on. So as long as you're over 100 weapons, and I'm up here at 166 with a font on to get us to 186, will get you close to 100% of a large ammo brick, which will be a shiny brick like a finder's used to be, which will give you double the ammo up to 65. It does the 60, the doubling of the 30, and then adds on the scavenger for 5 more. So it's like not exactly double, but it's double the normal brick, which is more than you're spending to get those 7 kills usually on red bars. Higher tier enemies do contribute more to your bar. Something like a major or lost sector boss is almost an entire bar, about 70 to 80% of a bar of special, and you're using a couple more rounds, sometimes the whole mag, so it makes up for it. Very, very good ammo economy on this. I was using it and just kind of spamming Lord of Wolves and then the marksman dodge to reload it, and then getting more kills with Bacchus. And I never even came close to running out of ammo. Even running double special and having it go put ammo into Praedyths, it was doing super, super well. So that's a pretty great combo. Even with like Forbearance, I tried this as well. You get the damage buff on Forbearance, and Forbearance has great ammo economy with that. And you can run something like Forbearance with New Land Beyond, and that was doing really well just in terms of total ammo economy. And making sure you have Bacchus up. You do not need kills with a weapon that is under the buff. As long as you have the buff active, getting a kill with anything will give you class ability. Even like melee kills and stuff like that. So once again, I still have Winter's Shroud on here because I want to take advantage of Cauterized Darkness, giving you that extra solar damage. If you want, you can switch this out and take something like Threaded Spectre, which will get you basically invis while you're shooting, because you'll be shooting the clone. And since you are using Mask of Bacchus to skip the cooldown, you don't have to worry about the cooldown being longer. If you are running this and you do not get the reset, however, do know it is going to double your dodge cooldown. So it will take a lot longer. We're talking, 40 seconds for a marksman dodge, which is very, very long. However, if you drop it with Winters, you're totally fine. You can throw some stasis shurikens or anything else that slows to get some cooldown back. I do have Withering Blade on here for the range, for the slow if I need it, and for proccing Dawn, which will give you Radiant and Cauterized Darkness at the same time really lets you lay into something like a champion or a mini boss. Won't work on bosses because that's how the artifact mod works, but still, this is a great combo, I think, for getting that to proc. I have Grapple Grenade on just to be able to unravel. You can take Duskfield as well. I just kind of wanted to do something different there. I do recommend taking Marksman Dodge because you're going to be dodging so often that finding time to reload feels like a pain. So I recommend taking Marksman Dodge. Acrobat's Dodge does not work, unfortunately. Gamblers is a good pick. As long as you're okay with reloading your Lord of Wolves manually, you'll be fine doing that. And then, spamming Withering Blades and getting your Radiant, it'll be really, really good. I just didn't have another way to reload it. I thought reloading it manually felt boring. So I went ahead and took that. Powerful Attraction to pick up orbs you're making. Reaper to make sure you're proccing orbs pretty consistently. This does not require you to get a kill, so I just found this to be a very consistent way to proc it. It is on a 10-second cooldown. Time Dilation to make sure your mods last 15 seconds so that if you aren't getting the perfect overlap, you're still not losing all your stacks all the time. As much weapon as you can get. Class ability about 60. I have 60 Grenade because that's just what I had. I am using a weapon font to make sure I'm getting big bricks. Solar Weapon Surge to give you 10% more damage. Scavenger to get you a little bit extra ammo, make sure your ammo economy is good. Health Font to give you some extra healing on orb pickup. We're talking about 30 to 40 on orb pickup. Ammo generation here for 2 different elements. This is because I want my heavy and my primary to contribute extra just in case I'm getting kills with them, making sure I'm getting extra heavy, extra green. They'll be contributing more to Lord of Wolves. Lord of Wolves will be contributing more to these other weapons. The ammo chest piece does not affect this with 100. It gives you directly ammo generation stat on that weapon. So once you're at 100, it's capped, but it is for something like this, which is at 60 with Envious Arsenal. And then I have, weapons on here. The arm piece, I have some fonts just to give me extra grenade uptime, make sure I'm being able to keep some kind of ability going and get the debuff if I need it. And obviously on my helmet, I'm running double special ammo finders to contribute back into Lord of Wolves, into being self-sustaining, and then Solar Siphon so that every second kill, while you're on a little rampage there, you will spawn an orb pretty fast, pretty convenient. You wanted to switch one of these out for something like Dynamo, that's going to be disabled, I think, in the raid. But Ash of the Assets, hands-on, power preservation, whatever you need is going to be a fine pick. But this lets me very consistently spam double specials or special weapons and get the ammo back. Self-sufficient as long as they have a good ammo gen. Forbearance is very high at 87. But even if you're going to use a primary, something like Taraba's got 100, as well as Huckleberry actually has a 100 ammo gen as well. So if you need something to spawn ammo pretty consistently, these are very good primary options. And then Lord of Wolves is just a surprisingly self-sufficient option that will also spawn heavy consistently. If you don't need the Lord of Wolves ammo as much, definitely switch one of these for like a heavy finder, and that'll get you heavy in about 10, 11 kills. There you go. That is all the builds that we are running for our day 1 contest raid that we're thinking about taking. Like I said, we're not planning on bringing a hunter. However, if I do, it'll probably be on this Mask of Bacchus build. So this build's kind of just crazy. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the weapons that we're actually going to bring into the contest raid. Put that out tomorrow morning, hopefully before the raid goes live, so you guys can know, what we're thinking, why we're going to bring. But I want to touch on a couple of exotics and a lot of legendary archetypes that you guys should work around and try and plan to bring into the raid to give you the best chance of success. That's it for today, guys. I hope to see you all again very, very soon. Thank you for watching.